What happens when a company hands you a laptop and says, go to work? You power it on, sign in, and start doing your job. But behind that simple moment, there's a whole process running in the background. Something has to install the right apps, enforce the security settings, and make sure your device is safe to use with company data. 15 years ago, that process looked very different. I'd had to physically touch every single device. They'd unbox a laptop, install the operating system, configure every setting by hand, load all the applications, test everything, and then hand it to you. If something needed to change later in the security update, a new app, somebody had to push that change manually or through complex on-premise servers. Intune changes all of that. It's a cloud service that does the entire job remotely, without IT ever needing to see your device. Think of it as a digital bouncer and Butler for your work devices. It decides what's allowed in, what stays out, and makes sure everything runs smoothly, all from the cloud. What exactly is Microsoft Intune? Here's the simplest definition. Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based service that manages devices, phones, laptops, tablets from one central dashboard. It's part of Microsoft's Endpoint Manager family, but most people just call it Intune. Now let's clear up a common confusion. Intune is not a VPN, not antivirus software, and not a remote desktop tool. It's a device management platform. That means its job is to control what happens on a device, enforce rules, and keep an eye on device health, not to connect you to a network or scan for viruses, though it does work alongside tools that do those things. Intune has three core jobs. It enforces security settings, things like password requirements, encryption, and camera restrictions. It deploys apps, so when you need Outlook or Teams, they just appear on your device. And it tracks device health. It knows whether your device is up to date, whether it's encrypted, and whether it's been compromised. And it does all of this across pretty much every platform you can think of. Windows, macOS, iOS, Android, even some Linux devices. So whether you're using a corporate laptop, a personal phone for work, or a shared tablet on a factory floor, Intune can manage it. But Intune didn't appear out of nowhere. It solved a very specific problem that used to drive IT teams crazy. The old way versus the Intune way. Picture this. It's 15 years ago, and a new employee joins the company. Someone in the IT department grabs a laptop from a shelf, unboxes it, installs the operating system from a USB drive, configures every setting manually, loads all the required applications, runs tests, and then finally hands it to the new hire. That process could take hours per device, and for a company onboarding 50 people, that's days of work. Updates were just as painful because IT had to push group policies from on-premise servers sitting in a server room somewhere. Devices would only check for those updates when they were connected to the corporate network. So if you were working from home, or from a coffee shop, or from an airport lounge, your device might go weeks without receiving critical security updates. And mobile devices, they were basically a blind spot. It had no real way to manage phones. If an employee used their personal phone to check work email, which everybody did, there was no way to enforce a passcode, no way to wipe corporate data if the phone was lost, and no way to know if the device was even secure. Intune turned this entire model around. It lives in the cloud, which means it's always connected. Devices check in from anywhere, your home office, a hotel lobby, a client site, and Intune can push updates, enforce policies, and check compliance in real time. It sets the policies once, and every device follows them automatically. No manual setup and no waiting for the next network connection. So how does Intune actually pull this off? Let's look under the hood at the three core building blocks that make it work. The three core building blocks. Let's start with device enrollment. This is how a device gets claimed by your company, and the method depends on who owns it. For company-owned devices, Windows Autopilot is the gold standard. Imagine a laptop shipped directly from Dell or Lenovo to a new employee. They power it on, connect to Wi-Fi, and enter their work email. That's it. Behind the scenes, Intune recognizes the device's unique hardware hash, applies the right configuration, installs the required apps, and joins it to the company's directory. No IT person ever touched that laptop. For iPhones and Macs, Intune integrates with Apple Business Manager. When a company buys devices through an authorized reseller, those devices are automatically linked to the organization. The first time someone turns on their new iPhone, it walks them through the setup and enrolls into Intune before they even see the home screen. For personal devices, what people call BYOD or bring your own device, Intune uses something called a work profile on Android and user enrollment on iOS. Instead of taking over the whole phone, it creates a separate encrypted space just for work apps and data. Your personal photos, messages, and apps stay completely private. Once a device is enrolled, Intune pushes down configuration policies. Think of these as the house rules for your work device. They define things like password requirements. Must be 6 characters, must include a number, must change every 90 days. They enforce encryption, so if your laptop gets stolen, nobody can read the files. They can block the camera, disable Bluetooth, or restrict which apps are allowed to run. These policies are set once by IT and applied automatically to every enrolled device. Then there are compliance policies, which are the health checks that run constantly behind the scenes. Is the device up to date with the latest security patches? Is encryption still enabled? Has the device been jailbroken or rooted? Intune checks all of this on a regular basis, typically every 8 hours. If a device falls out of compliance, say the user disabled encryption or skipped a critical update, Intune can take action. It might send a notification asking the user to fix the problem, block access to company email and files until the issue is resolved, or in extreme cases, wipe the device remotely. But managing the device itself is only half the story. What about the apps and data on it? Mobile application management, the BYOD superpower. This is where Intune really shines. A lot of companies let employees use personal phones for work. It saves money, people prefer using their own devices, and it's more convenient. But there's a tension there. Full device management on a personal phone feels invasive. Nobody wants their employer controlling their photos, their messages, their personal apps. Intune's answer to this is something called Mobile Application Management, or MAM for short. Instead of managing the whole device, Intune manages only the work apps. Here's how it works. You install Outlook, Teams, and OneDrive on your personal phone like normal. But when you sign in with your work account, those apps get a corporate wrapper. That wrapper controls what you can do with work data inside those apps. Let me give you a real example. You can read a work email in Outlook on your personal phone. That's fine, but you cannot copy that email and paste it into a personal notes app. You cannot save a work document to your personal cloud storage. You cannot forward a confidential message to your personal email address. The corporate wrapper enforces those rules at the app level, not the device level. And here's the best part. If you leave the company, or if your phone is lost or stolen, IT can wipe the corporate data from those apps remotely. They don't touch your personal photos, your text messages, your contacts, or any of your personal apps. They just remove the work data from Outlook, Teams, and OneDrive. Your phone goes back to being your phone. This is what makes BYOD actually workable. Employees get to use their own devices. Employers get to protect their data. Nobody has to choose between privacy and security. This brings us to the security layer that ties everything together. Identity and conditional access, the gatekeeper. Intune doesn't work alone. It sits on top of another Microsoft service called Entra ID. You might know it by its old name, Azure Active Directory. Think of Entra ID as the identity system. It knows who you are. It knows whether you're allowed to sign in. It handles authentication, the part where you type your password and get a code on your phone. What Intune does is add device information to that picture. Intune tells Entra ID, this device is healthy and compliant, or this device has a problem. That signal, device health, becomes part of the access decision. This is where conditional access comes in. Conditional access policies combine both signals into one rule. Is this the right person? Are they on a healthy device? Are they connecting from a trusted location? The policy checks all three before granting access. Here's what that looks like in practice. You're sitting in a coffee shop, trying to check your email on your work laptop. You type your password correctly, you pass the MFA check. But behind the scenes, Intune reports that your device hasn't installed the latest security update. It's out of compliance. Conditional access sees that signal and blocks access. You can't get to your email until you install that update. The password was correct, the person was you, but the device wasn't healthy, so access was denied. This is the foundation of something called zero trust. It's a security model that says, never trust, always verify. Don't assume something is safe just because it's on the corporate network. Don't assume a user is legitimate just because they know the password. Check everything every time. Intune is the tool that makes device verification possible in a zero trust world. Now let's talk about the practical stuff. What does Intune actually look like for the people who use it every day? The admin experience versus the user experience. For IT admins, Intune looks like a single dashboard where every enrolled device shows up with its compliance status, last check-in time, operating system, and primary user. At a glance, they can see which devices are healthy and which ones have problems. From that dashboard, admins can take remote actions. If a laptop gets lost, they can wipe it remotely, all data gone, just like that. If an employee forgets their PIN, they can reset it without making them bring the device to IT. Critical security update, they can push it to every device with a few clicks. The reporting is just as powerful. Admins can see exactly which devices are out of compliance and why, filter by platform, user, or policy, and export reports for audits, all in one place. For end users, that's you, Intune is nearly invisible. Most of the time, you never know it's there, and that's exactly the goal. You might use the company portal app once to install work apps, see a notification about a password update, or notice your work laptop forces you to use a PIN before booting. But the vast majority of Intune's work happens silently in the background. Pushing configuration changes, updating apps, checking compliance, and reporting back to the admin dashboard, all automatically without any input from you. The best Intune deployment is the one users never think about. They just know their devices work, their apps are there, and their data is safe with everything else happening behind the scenes. Intune versus the alternatives. Now, Intune is powerful, but it's not the only device management platform out there. Let's look at how it compares to the main alternatives. The big one is Jamf Pro, the gold standard for Apple-only environments. If your company only uses Macs and iPhones, Jamf gives you much deeper control. You can run shell scripts, build complex automation workflows, and patch third-party Mac apps automatically. It's built by Apple specialists for Apple specialists, but it only manages Apple devices, so if you have a single Windows laptop in your fleet, Jamf can't help you. Then there's VMware Workspace ONE, a strong cross-platform competitor that manages Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android just like Intune, but it's more complex to set up, tends to be more expensive, and requires dedicated expertise to run well. Intune's advantage comes down to integration. It's built into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, talking directly to Entra ID for identity, Defender for security, and Office apps for data protection. Everything is designed to work together because Microsoft built it all. For organizations already using Microsoft 365, which is most, Intune is the natural choice. You don't need to buy a separate tool, learn a separate interface, or manage a separate integration. It's already there, included in your E3 or E5 license. That said, many large enterprises use both. Jamf for their Apple devices, giving Mac admins deep control, and Intune for everything else. The two platforms integrate so Jamf can send compliance signals to Intune, which feeds them into conditional access. It's more complex, but it gives you the best of both worlds. What's coming next? Intune keeps getting better, and the biggest shift arrives in July 2026 when several Intune Suite capabilities move into the standard Microsoft 365 E3 and E5 licenses. Features that used to cost extra are now included. Remote help lets it take over a screen for troubleshooting. Advanced analytics gives deeper insights into device performance. Cloud PKI handles certificate management without running your own infrastructure. These were all add-ons, but now they're part of the base license. E5 subscribers get even more. Endpoint privilege management allows users to temporarily elevate permissions to install software or change settings without granting full admin rights. It's a smart middle ground between security and usability, and the Security Copilot integration brings AI-assisted troubleshooting and policy recommendations directly into the Intune console. The direction here is clear. Intune is shifting from a standalone product to a built-in management layer inside Microsoft 365. It's not something you bolt on later. It's part of the foundation from the start. And here's the bottom line. Microsoft Intune is a cloud service that manages devices, enforces security, deploys apps, and protects corporate data, all without IT ever touching a single device. But the key isn't just device management, it's trust. Intune tells the rest of Microsoft 365, this device is safe, let it through. That simple signal of device health powers conditional access, zero trust, and modern cloud security. If you use a work laptop or phone, Intune is probably running behind the scenes right now, keeping things secure without you ever noticing. That's the point. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and share this with someone starting their journey. Coming up next, Microsoft Defender, the security shield you didn't know you had.